Green.
Aloha, everyone. Today, we are proud to take action on two pieces of legislation to make our state more safe. And the reason we're taking action on gun violence, and I'm going to put a couple slides up, is because most important to us as a family is to keep our keiki safe and those that we love safe. So as you can see, we're taking action on gun violence today. And what is, I guess, important to note is that this is a crisis. This is a public health crisis in our country. On average, there are 11.9 gun deaths per 100,000 residents in the nation, and Hawaii averages 3.8 gun deaths per 100,000 residents in the nation. We are the second safest state in our country. But because of the great work of Chair Tarnas and Chair Rhodes, all of the legislators, we can move towards being the safest. And we are just so honored that they and Senator Kidani and other leaders stepped up. So we believe we need more action in Hawaii. Here's another thing to note. On average, someone in Hawaii is killed with a gun every week, about 55 people a year. And there's one death or injury. Really, one death or injury is simply too much for us ever to experience. So what you're going to see today is us moving from the state with the second lowest rate of gun violence in the country, and we hope to the state with the lowest rate of gun violence in the country. People once again ask, why would we take such deliberative action when we're already in a position that's better than almost every other state? It's because why would you ever let one child be hurt, one family member be hurt? So that's where we're coming from. You'll hear us talk about two bills today: Senate Bill 1230, which prohibits firearms in sensitive locations, and House Bill 1329, requiring the Department of Education to develop and implement active shooter training. Our experts will give you more details today. Just one or two more comments. I met Congresswoman Giffords, Gabby, on Big Island in Hawaii many years ago after she suffered the tragic injuries that she did at the hands of a mad person who shot her. And when you see that happen to someone who is dear to us as a leader in the country, you know that you have to take action. And more than that, on many occasions in my training back on the mainland, I was one of the physicians that took care of individuals that were victims of gun violence. Not only that, I lost a loved one to a suicide with a gun. And so anything that we can do, we should do. So with that, what I will do is I will pause and step aside and let our other experts and leaders address you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. My name is Nick McLean. I'm with the Department of the Attorney General, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to say a few words today about Senate Bill 1230, which the Governor will be signing into law momentarily. This is an important bill. It's a bill that will reduce the risk of gun violence in our communities by strengthening the state's firearms laws and by establishing reasonable safeguards. Among other things, SB 1230 will promote gun safety by establishing new training and education requirements. It will clarify gun licensing rules to conform to the Supreme Court's decision in Bruin last year. And the bill will also create new protections for sensitive locations. These are places like schools, parks, hospitals, and playgrounds, places where guns simply do not belong. On behalf of the Department of the Attorney General and Attorney General Ann Lopez, who is here with us today, we want to thank Governor Green for his leadership on these issues. And we also want to thank and acknowledge the members of the legislature who have introduced and really championed this bill, including Senator Michelle Kidani, Senator Glenn Wakai, Senator Carl Rhodes, and Representative David Tarnas. And we'll be hearing more about this bill and its companion measure subsequently. So thank you very much, and thank you all for your time.
Next, it is my honor to present Senate Vice President Michelle Kidani.
Aloha and good afternoon. Today we gather here on this momentous occasion as we come together to sign into law a very crucial piece of legislation, House Bill 1329. This bill marks a significant step forward in ensuring the safety and well-being of our students across this beautiful state of Hawaii. Under the provisions of this bill, the Department of Education is now mandated to collaborate with designated organizations to develop and implement an active shooter training program in all public and charter schools. This comprehensive training program will equip our educators, students, and law enforcement agencies with the necessary tools, knowledge, and skills to respond effectively in the event of an active shooter situation, but God help us that it never happens. As we gather today to celebrate the signing of House Bill 1329, let us also reflect and be horrified by the broader issue at hand, by remembering the precious lives that have already been lost and the families forever impacted by gun violence. The safety of our children is our utmost priority, and this legislation reflects our commitment to creating a secure and nurturing learning environment. By implementing an active shooter training program, we aim to enhance preparedness and minimize the potential risk associated with such emergencies. Through rigorous training and education, our students and educators will be better equipped to assess threats, make informed decisions, and take appropriate actions in the face of danger. Today, June 2nd, holds a special significance as we gather to commemorate National Gun Violence Awareness Day. On this day, the gun violence prevention movement unites, standing in solidarity and raising awareness by adorning the color orange. May this day serve as a reminder of our duty to create a safer and more compassionate society free from the grip of senseless violence. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the dedicated lawmakers, especially Representative Woodson, who championed this bill in the House Committee on Education, and all the concerned citizens who worked tirelessly to bring this bill to fruition. Your commitment to our students' safety and well-being is truly commendable, and our entire community owes all of you a debt of gratitude. Mahalo.
Our next speaker this afternoon is State Representative David Tarnas.
Aloha, everyone. In order to comply with the Bruin case ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court, Senate Bill 1230, Senate Bill 1230, was carefully crafted to ensure that it is consistent with the court's interpretation of the Second Amendment and allows for the establishment of a fair system of regulation for concealed carry of weapons in the state of Hawaii. Prior to the 2022 ruling, Hawaii is one of several states that utilized its discretion to issue concealed carry weapon licenses. But in the wake of Bruin, the decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, Hawaii and all states must issue concealed carry weapon licenses if the applicant meets established reasonable criteria. This changed everything. Hawaii had to take action in order to establish a concealed carry weapon license system, and that's what we've done through Senate Bill 1230. We think that it is fair and reasonable. I'd like to break down the provisions in the bill briefly into who, where, and how so that you can all understand what we did in this bill. Who can obtain a license, where can a weapon be carried, and how must a licensee behave? Some of the highlights of the legislation include a robust training requirement to obtain a license, strict background checks, including assessing whether the applicant would present a danger to the community based on a number of factors, and the requirement that the applicant must identify any health care providers who possess records having a bearing on the mental health of the applicant. Additionally, the concealed carry weapon license will be issued in the county where they're residents, but will be valid statewide, meaning a concealed carry weapon license holder can travel from one county to another, and their license to concealed carry that weapon that they got in one county is valid in another county in the state. The license is also valid for 4 years, which lowers the burden on issuing the license by county law enforcement agencies. They were worried about having to do this every year, so we made it 4 years. But if a license holder does not comply with the strict usage as to where and how they can concealed carry their weapon, they can lose their concealed carry weapon license at any time during that 4-year period. The list of sensitive places where the carrying of concealed weapons is not allowed include nearly all public buildings, schools, libraries, government facilities, hospitals, and also any bar serving alcohol, any private establishment open to the public, including restaurants, stores, and movie theaters. In a private residence, permission to bring a weapon must be given by the property owner. If a private resident or a private establishment wishes to allow guns on their property, they must make that explicitly clear by posting a sign saying guns are allowed. While carrying the weapon, licensees must refrain from using alcohol or drugs and must store the weapon in a lockbox while transporting the gun in their vehicle or via an airplane. In sum, we aim to create a balanced approach that respects the rights of gun owners and the need to maintain a safe and protected space in Hawaii. House Bill 1329, the other bill that the governor will sign today, takes a strategic approach to the nationwide epidemic of mass shootings in schools by requiring the Department of Education to work with the Hawaii State Teachers Association, the Hawaii Government Employees Association, and the United Public Workers. Those are the main agencies, labor unions that represent the workers in our DOE system. So that the DOE will work with these agencies to develop and implement an active shooter training program in all public and charter schools, provided that public and charter school students may decline to participate in the active shooter training. Because we don't want the kids to get traumatized if their parents didn't think it was a good idea for them to be involved with it. So they can actually request to be exempted from their participation on that day. So, but we believe this bill, we believe, is an essential investment that equips our teachers and staff in our schools with the critical knowledge and skills to respond to emergencies. Together, we think that we can, by working together, the House and the Senate have produced a very strong bill. I want to acknowledge the hard work of the Attorney General's office on this. Thank you very much to the administration for their support, our Attorney General Ann Lopez, as well as the Deputy Attorneys General that worked with us, Nick and Dave. They were great. The Senate was wonderful to work with. We were able to work together closely so that we came out with a strong bill in the end. And I want to thank the stakeholders, Everytown for Gun Safety, Moms Demand Action, the Giffords, and the Brady organizations were all very instrumental in us coming up with a strong bill. And I also want to thank the Hawaii Firearms Coalition. We were working carefully with those who represent the gun owners in the state, those who strongly advocate for the Second Amendment rights, and we tried to make sure we came up with a balanced bill. So I want to thank all of the stakeholders. So we came up with strong bills, and I want to thank the governor for his support and him signing it today. Thank you very much.
And right now I am pleased to introduce Chris Marvin, Everytown National Veterans Council representative. Thank you.
Aloha kako. I'd like to start by thanking the governor, members of the legislature, and all their staff and everybody who's worked really hard to make these bills a reality, to make Hawaii safer for our keiki. I've been involved, for the last few months, going to meetings and hearings and hearing the debate and all the minutia that goes into doing the hard work it takes to pass legislation like this in the face of the Supreme Court decision that Representative Tarnas mentioned. But this morning, I tried to explain this to my 13-year-old daughter. I tried to tell her what I was doing here today and why it was important. And I started with what a concealed carry weapon permit was and what it was like on the mainland in many states and what the Supreme Court said and how that affected Hawaii's ability to determine what's best for our state. And I'd explained to her that it's taken a lot of work for our legislature and the governor to come together and to make a bill that is one of the best laws in the nation when it comes to sensitive places, when it comes to concealed carry, This sets a standard for other states who are dealing with this same Bruin decision, and maybe states in the future who can strengthen their concealed carry laws. So it was interesting to look into her eyes and see that she didn't really understand, but that the things that I was telling her were common sense, right? Why should we have guns in all these places that she's going to the mall with her friends when it would be better if we just didn't have guns there? And so we created those laws. And then on the other hand, I represent veterans, right? The people who know the most about guns. The military, our profession of arms. Despite these laws, guess where we won't see people concealed carrying weapons in the future? Schofield, Marine Corps Base Hawaii, Pearl Harbor Hickam. The military does not allow this. Even though the Supreme Court says that every state has to, the military doesn't. So what Hawaii has done here is come to as close to making laws that resemble the rules that our profession of arms puts in place to keep themselves safe from firearms. And so I think we've done a great job. I do want to really call out this private business exemption that says the default is that guns are not allowed in the mall or the restaurant or the shop. That's going to keep my 13-year-old daughter safer. And so again, thank you all for everything you've done. Representative Tarnas, all the senators who worked on this, and Governor, thank you so much.
Okay, media folks, we have time for one question per organization.
And right before we jump into that, I wanted to say we had some special guests. Do I have Rebecca Kendall here and Aaron? These guys? All right. Leah Cole, I think also. All right. You guys, we're doing this for you, really. And let's see, Ellen Gabi Carson, I believe. I might have seen Ellen earlier. And I'll mention the organizations Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, Brady United Against Gun Violence, Indivisible, Students Demand Action, and Every Town for Gun Safety. It's really important that when people step up, that's when we take action. So thank you guys for being such wonderful advocates and helping us get to the right place. So questions?
Governor, actually a question for the Attorney General, if I could.
Sure. There you go.
Or whoever. I think it'd be good if both of you were there, because it's kind of it's not just about this law, but I understand from talking to the folks who sue routinely over these laws that not only are these laws, some of elements of this not constitutional, but that our existing laws for everyone else, for example, the ban on open carry, the length of our waiting period, and those sorts of things are also unconstitutional and will be subject to challenge. Are you prepared to fight these challenges regardless of the cost, given the Supreme Court's ruling? It seems pretty broad.
We are prepared to fight this law, and the protections that it provides are too important to simply say it's going to cost too much to support it and to fight against it. I'll also say that we're working on it, but we also have somebody who regularly argues before the United States Supreme Court, who has offered his services pro bono. So the expense will be greatly reduced if we're able to make that happen. Nick, did you want to say anything?
Just to add to that, I think I would say and really echo Representative Tarnas's comments that there was a tremendous amount of work that went into this bill, particularly in reference to SB 1230, and to say that a tremendous amount of research. We looked to historical precedents. We did all the types of historical analysis that the Supreme Court referred to in Bruin, and to the extent your question was sort of putting forward a premise that those provisions are not consistent with Bruin, we just simply reject that premise, and we think that the cases support our position, and we certainly are prepared to litigate that question.
Thank you.
And if I may add also, we often lead on some of these issues. We've led on social issues in the past, on people's marriage rights, for example. We've certainly decided to lead on gun safety laws, which has been the case for great legislators like Senator Kadani and all the colleagues that you see today. I mean, so we got to a place for a reason by being safer, and so it wouldn't hurt to have other states, agree with us and over time apply equal pressure on the other branches of government to do good things. Other questions?
So, does every one of the counties have their own rules, that are, pertaining to what is covered in SB 1230? And does this statewide law, after you sign this bill, does it go beyond what some or one or more of the counties have done, or maybe less?
So I can handle the question related to SB 1230. So the bill includes a preemption provision with respect to sensitive places. So the purpose of the bill is to create a statewide framework in terms of what is and is not a sensitive place, to make sure that everyone is on the same page. Counties can continue to enforce local ordinances, but only to the extent they align with the statewide provisions. Beyond that, on the issue of licensing, that's really a cooperative process. There's a statutory framework set by state law, and then the counties implement that by passing regulations and by adjudicating applications for example, a license to carry.
So would this bill negate anything, I guess, that the counties have done, or no?
It would establish a statewide framework for sensitive places. So if there were a county ordinance that went significantly further than SB 1230, and I don't believe that's currently the case, but it would establish, as I say, a statewide baseline that would apply everywhere.
If I could comment on that also. For example, we really appreciated what Mayor Blangiardi did earlier this year. He did great work, which I think also informed much of what we did at the state level. So we've often had different dynamics like that on tobacco, on gun safety, and so on. But there are some obvious standards, for instance, the health standard that people have to go through the examination. We have health standards that go statewide. We have these, of course, provisions on specific locations. We just wanted to be more clear, and that's why I think the bill was so good.
Michael Tsai from Spectrum Hawaii.
Will there be any additional resources needed to enforce the regulations for sensitive places?
Well, we have a lot of trust in our public safety folks. There are obviously there's some need to check when people put up placards or when they describe whether it is an approved place to have a gun. So we always do some oversight, but we're pretty confident that we have the adequate resources to police these concerns. Another thing, of course, is you end up saving a lot of resources when you have less violence and less concern. Now, the Department of Education does need our support, and needless to say, the chairs of education have been very supportive of the DOE, because as they put in the protocols to have these exercises to make sure if there's an active shooter that our keiki know what to do, they may need some resources, and we'll be there for them.
Eric Nacton from KITV.
Sure. Sorry.
So which area or region are you most concerned about, given your experience as far as like gun control, gun violence, and how do you feel it's going to help in the near future?
The urban core, almost all the gun violence that I've watched occurs usually in the context of conflicts over gambling or over drugs. And so I worry about the most. Not to say that you can't have a terrible crime that happens in the countryside. Of course it does. So we're actually going to be spending a lot of our time and energy on prevention. Outside of today's excellent laws, we want to help people when they have addiction. We want to help people see that going to gambling parlors where there's a lot of cash around is a bad idea. That's where a lot of the gun violence occurs, honestly. So giving people an opportunity to get off drugs makes a big difference. We do a good job in a lot of these areas. It's no coincidence that we have some of the best health outcomes and some of the lowest outcomes on these terrible acts of violence. So these things go hand in hand, but we can do better. As I mentioned earlier, with an average of 55 fatalities from gun violence a year, it's too much. I am still worried also very much about self-harm as a result of severe depression, bipolar disease, and so on. So we have to do better in those areas to help make these laws work.
Is there any media outlet that has not asked a question that would like to? If not, we're going to wrap it up and ask that the mics be taken down so that we can move the podium for photos.
Cool. Great. So, and then we'll sign these bills and give pens to young people.
Thank you, Governor.
Okay.
So that was Governor Josh Green. He is set to sign 2 new gun measures into law on Friday, which is today. They are just setting up to do a little photo op, and then Josh, public transportation, businesses that serve alcohol. And as you can see right now, this is Governor Green signing those bills into effect. And the other bill is a House bill. So this is creating a safer environment in our education system. So this is requiring the Department of Education to develop an active shooter training program in schools. So again, Governor Josh Green just signed 2 new gun measures into law, and they focus on putting restrictions for firearms in sensitive locations, and also requiring the Department of Education to develop an active shooter training program in schools. And these are some keiki that joined Governor Green alongside as he signed these. These are very young advocates promoting an end to gun violence. And these are some of the state lawmakers that work to make these bills a reality. I also wanted to take some time to actually go over what is in this Senate bill. So the description of that Senate bill says that it prohibits firearms in certain locations and premises. So that again includes schools, state buildings, other places that require more safety efforts. It also requires possession and disclosure of a license to carry. And this also clears up some information in obtaining concealed carry licenses. One of the things that they mentioned that this license is going to be offered for valid for 4 years. And these builds upon some of the measures that were already adopted by other counties, including Honolulu County and Hawaii County. And again, sensitive locations include state buildings, parks, public transportation, or businesses that serve alcohol. These are the 2 bills that are now set into law, and we'll definitely have more information about this in later editions of Hawaii News Now. I really appreciate you all for tuning in. Hope you have a great Aloha Friday. Thank you so much, and have a great day.